His name is Jimmy Nelson. You may remember him, a young Chicago ventriloquist who actually started the industry by betraying no action in here. We put the cameras even here on his throat. Didn't even see the move. So here he's back on our show, Jimmy Nelson. So let's have a very...
Thank you. After that.
Hi, I'm Tom Ladshaw. I'm here at Mike Lacey's Comedy and Magic Club in Hermosa Beach, California. Now, why am I hanging out backstage? Well, because it's a very special occasion. I'm here tonight with a comic legend. Not just any comic legend, but the amazing ventriloquist, Jimmy Nelson. Jimmy started his long show business career when he was only 12 years of age. Now, we probably all know someone who started in show business fairly young, but Jimmy is now 82 years of age. So you do the math. This guy has had a 70-plus year career in show business. So we're going to spend some time this evening talking about him, his life, his career, his legacy. So sit back, relax, and let's spend some time backstage with Jimmy Nelson. Mr. Nelson, how are you this evening?
Good, Tom. Nice to have you here.
Well, thanks. It's nice to be here. So I've got a whole bunch of things I want to ask, a whole bunch of things I want to go over. I think people who are watching are going to learn some things about you they didn't know. So let's have at it.
Fire away.
Okay, you were born?
Chicago, Illinois, December 15, 1928.
Let's talk about your family life growing up. You started out with a mom and a dad, and their names were?
Winifred and James.
Winifred and James. Now, are you a junior?
Not really, because I have a different middle name. I'm James Edward Nelson. My dad was James Sewell Nelson. So
okay.
So technically, I'm not a junior.
Were you always Jimmy, or did they call you Jim?
Oh, I was James.
Oh, excuse me.
Yes, all through my young years, my mother insisted on calling me James, and I hated it. You can imagine, yeah.
Now, did you have any siblings?
One brother, Donald. And he's 4 years my junior.
Okay, so the younger brother. I think a lot of the ventriloquists who've known you over the years, they've known, well, you did TV things here and there. Maybe they're not aware of some of the shows you worked and really how big a deal these things were. You worked on Cavalcade of Stars?
Cavalcade of Stars on the old Dumont network.
With?
With Jackie Gleason. That's right. Jackie had this show long before he did The Honeymooners and long before he was on CBS. The Dumont network was the network at that time. It was a limited network. Didn't go coast to coast, but it went all up and down the eastern seaboard and into the Midwest.
It was based in New York City, and you did the show there.
That's right. Yeah, I did a couple of appearances on that show.
Oh, okay.
And there was a sister show called Cavalcade of Bands that was produced by Jackie Gleason himself. He was a big band enthusiast, always has been, and I did a couple of appearances on that show as well, also on the Dumont network.
Oh, okay. So it's interesting, and of course this was, not only was it early in your career, it was early in television.
Oh, it was, yes.
And tell us a little about that, because I know performing situations on television in those days were far different than they are today, and even later in your career.
Well, the studios were either converted theaters, old theaters, or converted radio studios. So you didn't have, the lighting was not as good. The sound, there was no such thing as a lavalier microphone. Everything was a boom, and they kept showing in the shot, and the cameras would get in the shot. You know, it was a far cry from what you have today, far less perfection than you have. But it was live, and everybody knew it was live. And if something goofed, people would laugh about it.
And that was part of the fun.
Sure.
And it was black and white.
Oh, yes.
And again, so the technology, it was still in its infancy. What did you do as far as makeup for black and white television?
They would put purple makeup on your face.
Wow.
Now, not heavy, under the lines of your eyes, a little purple powder around. They said it was for the contrast.
Right.
It was also to keep you from seeing the sweat pouring down on the performers, because those lights were very, very hot and, you know, this close to you.
Obviously, you would sweat. How did Danny react to the heat?
Danny reacted, he had just been repainted on this one particular show with an oil-based paint under the hot lights. I didn't realize it, but the paint was running between the cracks where the mouth opens, just a little. You couldn't notice it. But we were singing and hitting a high, he hit a high note. The mouth stuck in an open position. That's true story. Television was new, I was new, I didn't know what to do. I slapped the mouth shut, said good night, ladies and gentlemen, and that was it.
And I'm sure a lot of people thought, well, that's a novel finish.
Yeah. Leave it in.
Okay, so also, let's see, we talked about Cavalcade of Stars with Gleason. You did some spots on your show of shows.
Oh, the old Sid Caesar Imogene Coca program.
That's a classic show. Tell us about that.
Well, that was an hour-and-a-half show once a week. And of course, two geniuses at comedy, Sid Caesar and Imogene Coca. Carl Reiner was also a regular on the show, Howard Morris, all very funny people to begin with. And then they would have guest acts, and I had the opportunity to appear on that show. And that was television history. That particular show goes down in the history books.
That was really the forerunner of the sketch comedy show, and that's really the progenitor of Saturday Night Live today, was that show.
That's exactly right, sure.
And of course they also had an amazing stable of writers. Mel Brooks got his start on that show, and later on Caesar's Hour, I know Woody Allen wrote for that show. There were so many people came out of that stable, all comedy geniuses.
A gentleman by the name of Shelley Keller wrote on that show, and later on he wrote a lot of material for me.
I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to ask you about material. Now, in the early days, you wrote your own material. Your dad helped you.
Right.
Obviously, when you work on these shows, you would have writers. At some point in your career, did you have a writer that you worked with who wrote material specifically for your nightclub or theater dates?
Well, when I did the Milton Berle show, which we'll get to,
Talk about in a moment.
one of the writers, Jay Burton, used to write a lot of things for me, along with Shelley Keller, who had written for Sid Caesar. So they would write, because when you're doing regular television, you can't do the same thing over and over again. You've got to, so I got a lot of help from them. And then they would help me with the nightclub act too. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so it's important to know, and I think it's important for ventriloquists today to know that, a lot of us, we try and do all of this stuff ourselves. And no one person can really do everything.
Not really.
It's important to know your strengths and weaknesses, and so you go to the best people you can. You went to Frank Marshall for a figure. Yes. You talked to professional comedy writers for material, and that's part of being a professional. That's part of being at the top of your game, isn't it?
But you have to be on top of your material. You have to be able to take what they write and then make it funny for yourself. Absolutely. For your particular characters.
And any other writers you work with? Those were the main two?
Those are the main two, yes. When I did, here we're jumping way ahead, but we'll get to it sometime or other. When I did the Nestle commercials on television, I had one of the copywriters from the agencies would write the material with me. We would sit and write the material together. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see. We're still in early TV.
I guess so.
So you did some game shows.
Yes.
There's some interesting stories there. Now, you even had your own game show.
Yes, I did for one season anyway on ABC. Come Closer.
And that was about 1954.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, 2054.
And what was the premise of the show?
Premise of the show was myself, Danny, Humphrey, and Farfel would get contestants from the audience, and they would be trick questions so that there would be two teams of people. So whichever team came closer to the answer would be the winner, titled Come Closer. The judge on the show who judged who would be the winner was Humphrey, dressed in a cap and gown.
Oh, okay.
And he would, so it was a quiz show, tongue-in-cheek, really. But they would win prizes. And we had the entire Milton Berle's orchestra in the studio. I stole them from Milton. We really had a big band, so that the jackpot question at the end of the show was done, a musical number with Danny O'Day or one of them singing with clues in the song. And it was a fun show, but it only lasted one season.
And the sad part of this is none of the footage survives?
None. It was all live.
That's a shame. We'd obviously love to see that. So other quiz shows, you did some other things. You did Bank on the Stars. You did Quick as a Flash. Down You Go. That was a little bit later. But let's talk for a moment about Strike It Rich. And why is that significant? That was an interesting show. Tell us the premise of that and why it's significant.
Well, if you remember those days of television, you'll never forget the show. Strike It Rich was a show that brought in people who were down and out, people who needed medical supplies or medical help, or just were out of work. It was really a terrible premise, but it was a very popular show. And these people would come on the show and they'd be asked questions, and if they answered them right, they'd win a little bit of this, a little bit of that, trying to help them out. And they would have a celebrity who would ask for the big question. And I was on the show one time, just one time. And this is just before the quiz show scandals, you recall, 21, that was, they went to jail. Well, they never caught up with this show. But I remember it well because they came to me and they said, now we'll give you the answers to the questions, but don't answer this one and don't answer this one correctly because we don't have that prize this week and we don't have that prize this week. So you got to blow those two. And I guess I'll say to my credit, I said, I don't want the questions. If I don't know them, I don't know them. If I know them, I'll answer them. And they let me do that. Can you imagine the big prize for these poor, down-and-out people was a mink coat? You know, where are you going to wear the mink coat in your neighborhood? You know?
That's right.
Well, of course, they sold it for food or whatever, but it was ridiculous in its premise, but the public loved it, and it went on for quite a few years.
Yeah, it was even revived a few years or a few times over the years, but this is still the early 50s. And it's about this time that Sid Stone, who's the pitchman on the Texaco Star Theater with Milton Berle, decides for whatever reason, either he's leaving or someone else decided. And how did this whole opportunity for you, which was a huge opportunity, come about?
Yes, it really was. It was a great boost to my career. I was working in New York, and I'm trying to remember, I believe it was Radio City Music Hall that the people from the Texaco show caught my act. Now, Sid Stone left the show. He was very successful, the pitchman, doing the Texaco commercials, but he went back to Broadway. He was a Broadway man. So they needed a replacement right away, and they happened to know I was working, and they thought that since he was doing a pitchman, which was a novelty commercial, why not a ventriloquist? And so New Year's Day, 1952, they put me in the Texaco hat, the Texaco suit. Danny O'Day had his little Texaco hat, his Texaco suit. His suit still fits him, but I can wear the hat, yeah.
Okay.
And we've stayed with the show for 2 years.
And so basically the format was, for those who are younger now and have never saw that sort of television, the way it was presented then, was that an hour show would essentially have only one commercial, believe it or not.
And that's right.
And it was right in the center of the show, and it was usually about a 5-minute chunk.
It was.
And it was presented live, as the rest of the show was, and sometimes you would incorporate the guest stars into the commercial.
Very often, sure. Milton Berle would work in the commercial, sometimes with me. We had a popular actor on the show one week. His name was Ronald Reagan.
Whatever became of him?
Well, at the time, he was president of the Screen Actors Guild.
Okay.
So he went on to bigger and better things.
Mm-hmm.
And he worked in the commercial with me. That was very nice. That was fun.
And I remember you had the Andrews sisters.
Yes. Well, I did a fun routine with them. Put Patty Andrews on my knee and the other two standing behind, and we did their version of Sonny Boy, which had been a big hit for them, except I did all of Patty's voices in Farfel's voice when she would do her lines. We have a clip of that particular one and a clip of the Ronald Reagan one as well.
So Berle, so that show, that went on for 2 seasons. You were
Yes.
with that for 2 years.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, and at what point, why did that end? Was that your decision? Was that his?
It was the sponsor's decision. They dropped the show, and Buick picked up sponsorship. Texaco didn't need me anymore. They didn't have the show. Buick had their own spokespeople, So that was the end of my association with the Milton Berle show.
Okay. So a little bit earlier, I mentioned that we'd have a special guest to join us, and he's now here. Please welcome world-class ventriloquist and another Jimmy Nelson fan, the one and only Jay Johnson. Jay, it's great to have you.
Thanks, Tom. And I can't emphasize maybe the greatest fan of this man sitting here.
That's something we all feel. I think all ventriloquists feel like, I must be the greatest Jimmy Nelson fan for so many reasons. Mainly because, perhaps, of the legacy we mentioned earlier, his amazing tutelage of ventriloquists. Why don't you tell us about your experience with instant ventriloquism?
For a minute I thought I was dead.
Yeah, we don't mean to talk in front of you. I don't know. But it's not just instant ventriloquism. I think that if Jimmy had never done instant ventriloquism, his dedication to the art form and his the time he takes for anybody, and I was one of the kids that came up to him when I was 12 or 13, and just your charm and your way of dealing with us back then that were just interested. I mean, that's as much legacy as a piece of vinyl, you know, for me.
Now I know I'm dead.
No.
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up, because you say back then, when we were impressionable. That's tough to say. Go ahead, you try it. There's a line that you said in I'm No Dummy, the documentary, where you say, Jimmy Nelson taught us all to be gentlemen.
Yes, and I live by that. I live by that. I agree. I didn't want to grow up to be Edgar Bergen. I wanted to be Jimmy Nelson. I mean, you were just the kind of performer that I wanted to be. Bergen was Bergen, and he was very formal and had his good qualities. But Jimmy and Danny and Farfel, that's who you want to be.
Well, I gotta say, Jay is Jay, and I'm a fan.
Well, geez. No, Jimmy, I wanted to ask you a couple of things, because as a ventriloquist, traveling with a work of art like Danny O'Day, which, you know, as you say, couldn't even get a duplicate. How did you travel back then with him? How do you travel with him now? How do you keep this piece of art safe all the time?
It's strange, because I probably don't take the precautions that you think I should. I pack them well. I have plenty of foam, plenty of other things to wrap around them. And I'll tell you a little secret, and I don't tell this to everybody. I did tell it to Tom, but when I traveled here, coming from Florida, I packed Danny and Farfel in the same suitcase, and I was traveling as light as possible. So my socks are in there, my underwear is in there, my pajamas, my robe, everything, and it's great for protecting them. Yeah. So I do things like that.
Well, see, I think that's very inventive. That's a very inventive.
So I'm just going to ask you a few oddball questions, things I've made notes on as we've talked over the many hours, the most enjoyable hours. I know Bergen wasn't the only ventriloquist on radio.
Well,
Jimmy Nelson did a stint on radio.
Yes, and I certainly didn't try and follow into Bergen's footsteps, because my show was completely different. Yes, my radio show was on the ABC radio network on Sunday nights.
And this was 1950...
54.
54.
Yes, and it was on summertime, and it ran Sunday nights all summer long. And it was aimed at the motorist crowd, the people driving on vacation in the summertime. And what we would basically do with the dummies, with the figures, was to tell people about the points of interest as they travel around the country. And they would give me all this information about the national parks and the different things that you could see all over along Route 66 and wherever you happened to be at that time. Danny and Farfel would help me out. And I could use all voices, but mostly it was Danny and Farfel, because I had them with me there in the studio. And it was also a DJ show. We spun records in the studio. I had an engineer to actually do the work. But I would try to do it in a comedy way. We would do a lead up and start the record halfway through where the lyrics would pick up what we were talking about.
Oh, I see. That's very clever.
And he would try to say something about Sinatra and so, and he always does, and then start the record, and he would sing apparently what Farfel would say after he stopped talking. It was a comedy bit, and we did a lot of that.
And that was it just that one summer, or how long did the show run?
It ran for 2 summers in a row.
Summers. Okay.
54 and then 55.
And you brought up an interesting point there. You actually had Danny and Farfel in the studio with you.
Yes, even though it was radio, the voices don't sound the same to me. If I'm not working those controls, it doesn't come out exactly the way I want it to. So
That's very interesting.
even radio, I'll use the figures.
They have to be there.
They have to be there, yeah.
Okay. I have to beg your forgiveness a little bit. You've heard some rumblings for the last little while. We've got a lot of things going on. We're in the nightclub. They're getting ready to set up for the second show. They want us out of the room, so we're going to have to say goodbye. Jimmy, I've already talked to the director. I've talked to the producer. We're celebrating your 70th year in show business this year. We've decided if you're up for it, we'll come back. We'll all be back here for your 100th anniversary. Will you join us?
If Senior Wences could make it, I certainly will try.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom. You make it so easy.
Thank you.
And we're out.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got one more question.